Okay, we will bring the work session to order at 5:30 p.m. The first item up on the agenda is La Madre Apartments. Make sure it stays here. La Madre Way Apartments, Christopher Community. And I'm sorry, I did not ask your name.
Oh, yes. My name is Audrey Farwaji.
Okay.
I'm the Director of Development at Christopher Community.
And just to let people know, Christopher Communities, it's what we commonly refer to in the village and the town as St. Mary's Apartments area.
Yes.
Is what, I'm not sure if the name had changed, but years ago, that's what most people know. It's over off of Smoky Hollow Road, just past
It's still there, yes.
the plaza. So
Perfect.
feel free to explain.
Sure.
You might have to get a little closer to that mic.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's actually...
It is.
It's on?
It's
Okay.
really, yeah.
All right. I will do my best to use my loud voice. I was also hoping, I don't see him. So our attorney is not here, it looks like. So hopefully he'll show up. I'll do my best to talk about some of the legal side of things, but
Oh, sure.
not my expertise. But essentially what we proposed here is a tax exemption agreement, a pilot for the project. So La Madre Landing is going to be a affordable housing project funded mostly through state loans and low-income housing tax credits. So the rents are going to be restricted, set aside for individuals making between 30 and 60% of AMI. And the operating budget through this state program has strict limitations on it. Aside from the rent restriction, that's really the only form of income for the project. And considering that the rents are extremely low, in most cases for other housing projects that we develop like this, we usually try to enter into a tax pilot with the municipality. So other projects we have a project that has a pilot like with the town of Camillus, with the town of Geddes, and with the town of Eaton. So if you want to, maybe reach out to them and, our pilots are pretty much set up the same way. So what we ask is that for this particular project, what we propose in here is tax payments based on shelter rent calculation, which will be, and we set it at 6%. So looking back at the operating budget, we might be able to actually bump that up to 7%, just looking at the numbers. So if needed, we could change that. But the shelter rent calculation is essentially going to be based on rents collected minus utilities that the project pays. So this project's all electric, so it'll be electric, water, sewer, and internet is usually wrapped into that too. We pay for internet for the residents, so provide that free amenity. So we would send our actual operating expenses to the town twice a year. That's what is proposed in here. January 1st and July 1st, I believe, would be when we would make those payments. We would send those calculations to you for review and then answer any questions. And that's essentially how we would propose to pay taxes in lieu of normal assessments. So, yeah.
Okay, and for the public, Dina, did you get the pilot up on, did we ever put their proposed pilot agreement up on the website? Okay.
I'm trying to.
I mean, if not, we'll get it up there.
I can do it actually now. I'm trying to connect right now.
Yeah, that's okay. Which is what I have here. It's, I think, 11 pages. Before the town board asks questions. We do have an existing agreement similar to this in the town of Lysander. It's not shared with the village of Baldwinsville. It is the Greenway Apartments in Radisson, which I think Baroness Housing oversees. Similar thing. These are very common. My question was, you're looking for a 40-year agreement, which is the same agreement that was signed in 2011.
Yes.
So this is a long-term agreement. Do you have any other agreements that are a one payment for the annual? Because that agreement is a one payment agreement. They pay us, usually we receive it in January
Got it.
from the previous 12-month period to report. And
Okay.
January or early February is normal, we get the 12-month report. Because if it was, how this works, if we approve it, the town receives the check, and then the town distributes to the municipalities that aren't receiving taxes. So the town would send out a payment, based on the percentages to the other municipalities on top of receiving the town's portion of the pilot. And utilities, water and sewer are separate. That is not part of the pilot. If they're a unit, whatever their unit fee would be, they would still pay full value of that amenity. So it's not like they're getting a discount on the utility side. And unlike most pilots that go through the county, that's for industrial development. This is for usually subsidized housing, lives with the small, the municipality it's in. That's just a preface for the public.
Yes, absolutely. I think most of our agreements have the biannual payment, but I'm sure that we could, work with and do that single payment on January 1st if that's the preference. I don't see there being any issue with that. We were just, presenting what we commonly do, but I'm sure, I can talk to the rest of our organization and we can work that out, yeah.
And I think if I read the agreement correctly, I think it would be January and July would be
Yeah,
your
that was the-
setup, and that would be for the, July to December
Prior
would be the
6 months.
January payment.
Exactly.
So, okay. Does the board like to ask questions?
Sure. I'm thoroughly new to this whole type of thing. I've been on the board since 2014, and this is the first time something like this has come to front of me. So I honestly do not understand. So why do you feel like you shouldn't just pay taxes on an assessed value? What's the difference? And what is the dollar difference here?
Sure. So with these projects, the operating budget, so this is low-income housing, right? So through the state and through low-income housing tax credits, rents are restricted. So they're set very low for this project. They're going to be set between 30 and 60% of area median income, so that's somewhere around, and I don't have the exact numbers. I can always provide.
I'd like to know what they are.
Yeah, exact numbers.
In the ballpark?
Yeah, so the 30% are roughly around 400, and then up to 60%, it's going to be somewhere in the 700 range. And for the first 12 months, we cannot increase rents, and then we have to get permission from the state yearly to increase them. They can only increase by a certain percentage.
What's that percentage that you only?
It's typically, I believe, so after the first year, they can go up, I believe it's 8.6, and then after that, I will have to double check it. It was previously 3%. They made some changes recently, so I will have to confirm and provide that to you.
So does the pilot reflect the fact that rents go up?
Yeah, so in the pilot, we typically, yes, if rents go up, our payments will go up since it's based on our actual collected rent. So whatever we collect, if rents increase, the shelter rent, that calculation will be based on those actual rents collected. So it will increase.
It's an audited, the board,
It'll be based on audited financials.
2011, nobody was on the board in 2011, the
Yeah.
last time we've entered into an
Entered into
agreement,
it,
I believe.
yeah.
So that's where you'll probably get a lot of questions, and
Of course.
we gotta remember these are subsidized. They're getting a fixed dollar amount. This isn't a, fair market
Yeah.
value rent. Now, my other question was, is this any age or is this senior again?
This one's not senior. This is
Okay.
geared toward family, but also There are set-aside units. It's through OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. So there are units set aside for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in this project.
It's 52 units
It's
expected
52
in the
units
building?
total,
It's gonna be
yeah.
one building.
It's one single building, yes.
So there'd be 2 buildings on the property. Is the original one still a senior?
Yeah, St. Mary's is senior, yep. And this will be separate, so it's a separate parcel, separate building, like separate
Whole separate
operating,
thing.
a whole separate project, yes.
So if you were paying normal taxes, and again, Teresa Goldberg's not here, I don't know the answer, are apartments assessed not on their rents, the dollars that are coming in, that's just the value of the property?
Teresa will be here for her assessor report in 6:30.
Right.
I believe it's based on the building cost. Yep.
The actual, regardless of how it's being used.
What it creates in value of our student, yeah.
So and I'm just gonna think out loud here that what we're saying is we can't do an assessment based on the way the property is being used.
Yes.
Sometimes assessments are based on income. So for example, if you take a box store, something like a Home Depot or a Target, their assessed value might not reflect the actual cost, which sometimes is much lower, of actually constructing a box store. All right, so you can have an assessed value of millions of dollars when it only cost you $2 to build the place. But to give you a better but more historic example, at the not the height but the beginning of its decline in assessment, Shoppingtown Mall was assessed for $57 million. It didn't really cost 57. I mean, if you looked at that structure, even with today's numbers, it would not have cost you $57 million to build it. It was assessed based on revenue stream. So that is an appropriate assessment vehicle for certain properties, but it is not the only way that you can conduct assessments, and you do run into circumstances where that type of model doesn't work well. For example, when you have effectively state-regulated rent control for a property. So if it was just a routine set of apartments, bear the market rate, let people pay what they're willing to pay to live there kind of thing, the request for a pilot agreement would be viewed with a different eye than one coming from a project that is tied into and restricted by state regulation in terms of what the income is.
I guess I'm trying to get my head, and I just I'll defer to Pete, but I'm trying to get my head around what 6% ends up being. Like, if hypothetically, if these apartments were appraised or assessed on a not so much on the dollar value of the property, but on the income that's coming in, and taking into account it's 400 and 700 times however many units, 52 units, is the 6% way low than what we would have gotten normally? I mean, I just don't know how to evaluate 6%. And again, if you had an apartment building that was generating $400 and $700 per unit versus, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, but I think the rents in Baldwinsville range from about $1,000 to $2,000 a month. So you're maybe half that, or a little bit less than half that. And if the private owner of that apartment is paying taxes on, and he or she is bringing in $1,000 to $2,000 a month, you're bringing in half, so your taxes be about half. And can we pilot agreement reflect that? Because I don't care whether it's a pilot or you're paying taxes. You just want to pay less because you bring in less money. I get that, but ought not it be exactly what it would be, half of what a private owner would do? I don't know if that.
Have you provided projection schedules or?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to offer is that we have an operating budget, and we can share that. So we do have projections of the rent that would come in, utilities that we expect to pay, and then what that shelter rent, what the budget can support. We're certainly not asking to pay, the minimum amount. We're really asking to pay what the budget can support. Because if we have, a failing operating budget, we won't be able to get to construction closing. The state is going to pull out funding, and this project is not going to move forward. So definitely can share that. I don't have the numbers off my head, but if we want to compare them, to what maybe a typical apartment building would be assessed at and the normal tax rate, let's do that and see what
That
we
would
can
be
do.
great if you could do that. And you're paying the utilities, the renter is not?
Yeah, so the project, most utilities will be owner paid. The resident will be paying basically they'll be paying, so it's an all-electric building, so yes, they will be paying for their in-unit electric. We pay for, water, we pay internet, and then all the common utilities. So that's what the projection is based on. It's not based on the tenant utilities as well. We
They
separate.
do pay electric, which is heat and lights.
Yes, heat and lights, yes.
In the shelter payment, do you have a total, sorry, I was thinking out loud, do you have an estimated budget? Because I know you got an award from the state. There was the news
Yes.
brought up the state grant award a couple months ago. Because I didn't see that in any information they sent along of like estimated costs to build, so the board can have an idea of, what you're at, because I don't know how you don't know who's gonna rent, so you don't really know what you're gonna bring in rent because it's income adjusted, correct?
So this is, there's a difference between the income-based housing and affordable housing. So this is affordable housing. So tenants must qualify. They must qualify in an income band, and the rents are set. So they will be paying those rents. Yes. So it won't be. The rents will not be adjusted based on their income. They are based on the AMI bracket. If that sort of makes sense.
So do you know what the property is paying taxes currently with no structure on it? And really, just so you know where I'm going, I'm curious what the property is paying in taxes now.
Yeah.
And with the 6%, is it 6% on top of what, so that we're made whole plus 6% or?
Yeah, so I do not have what it's currently paying. I know that it is very minimal. Currently, it's just vacant land, unused. So the taxes are very, they're minimal right now. So we have been paying the taxes on that vacant land.
You know what the address is? I'll pull up.
Yeah, if you want to pull up the address, it is,
P. Diddy at the time.
it's 104 Smoky Hollow Road.
Okay, let me look up here.
It's 104 Smoky Hollow?
Yes.
I'm just curious, as far as the pilot goes, payment in lieu of taxes, I just want to make sure that we're made whole. And then if there's a structure on it, then that's all. And it's a 40-year pilot, right?
Yes. that's
So will
right.
that 6% bump up each year, or is it just a standard 6%?
Yeah, so we would ask to enter into, that percentage. However, with the rents increasing yearly, that the taxes will increase because 6% of that calculation will, with the rents increasing, the project will be able to, afford more, a percentage of that. Yeah, but the percentage will not change. Yeah.
The full market value is...
20
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, Al, unless you came up with something different, I got a 2025 county real tax bill, like $664.87.
Oh, I was looking for the assessed value. So the assessed value,
I'm just curious about.
okay, yeah, full market value is $142,857. current assessment is at 100,000 and the tax bill is, if you.
We gotta read it.
It's up on the next screen.
Yeah,
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
thank you. So that's what that is, vacant land. And that's the property that was originally the fire department was looking at a few years back. I mean, I can tell you that the other complexes we have these agreement with are more than one building. You know, they are 5, 6, 7 building complexes. This is a one unit. So you really can't compare what you're receiving with that. And the Greenway is a little bit different because of having different buildings, you have a different assessment based
Well, that's why I
off
asked
the
the
building.
percentage, because I know
Yeah.
it changes every year until it's full.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, 40 years of the same rate, and then what happens?
Right.
And then it would go from 6% to 100%, what happens after that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's who's ever around in 40 years to figure that one out.
Can't tell you, but still.
So,
Okay.
does anyone else have any questions? I didn't see anybody else come in, but if the attorney comes in or whatever,
Sure.
that's fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think we're all set. We're not going to make a decision tonight because
Oh,
obviously,
of course, yeah.
with this being with the Village of Baldwinsville, we need to get information from them also to,
Yeah.
make sure. With multiple municipalities.
What is this worth, Kevin? If it's 6%, what happens?
Oh, no, it just ends up being on calculation of the total income. And I don't know that part.
Net.
I'll have,
Net.
the dollar amount, how we divvy that up, I think it gets based on,
That's up to the towns to see,
Yeah.
how it
I
gets.
think normally they break up the value of it between the municipalities as a percentage. So,
You're going to get the projection.
Yes, so I will provide the projections, and then any other questions that come up, please.
yeah, we definitely like to see the cost
Yeah,
projections to get an idea. I can tell you that other pilots we have are in the 10% range
Sure.
with this agreement. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but they were also built 10, 15 years ago, so they had different projections on costs. And there are multiple properties too, multiple parcels.
Yeah, so they might have, a more robust.
Yep.
But yes, thank you so much for your time, and I will get that over to you. Thank you.
Cedric, did you have a question?
Where are you planning on putting this?
It's where the fire station was proposing to be built next to Candlewick? It's that property. The senior apartment, I believe, do you still own the senior
Yes,
apartments?
seniors.
They bought that parcel from the fire district.
Oh, okay. I just don't see it.
No, I didn't have it on a map, and but that's why it's in the village, and that adds a little bit of a thing to this, but, they bought that because it was,
Yeah, I know.
yep,
Hey,
thank you,
Thank you.
thanks. Next item up on the agenda, we have local law updates. And this is more of a question, we're going to be referring them to our town planning and zoning boards tonight and the county planning. And I just wanted to make sure, the board finally had a chance to look them over. We got everybody out the proposed changes. And Mr. Yeager, did you have anything else?
After reading that presentation, or reviewing that presentation you sent me yesterday about the Oreos project, I think we should press pause on this and implement some of the suggested changes in that presentation so we can have a little bit more control on these larger, potentially have a little bit more control on these larger solar projects. Your thoughts?
Well, so I don't know if the board, I received an email yesterday afternoon from the New York Association of Towns, and they're having their monthly supervisors meeting, via Zoom next Tuesday, I believe. And one of the agenda topics is ORES, which covers the larger takes, where the state takes it out of your hands for the larger producers of energy. They are making some suggested changes to local laws to help control even what they would feel that you would have some control over the larger generative buildings also by adjusting, modifying your law. I forwarded to Mr. Yeager last night at, I don't know, 9 o'clock or whatever, whenever I got it. And, it might be good to add. Seeing that, you'll also see on the agenda tonight, I had thought back in March that we would get to solar and battery storage before June. So I was short-sighted in my, extending it only 3 months. So we will not have everything back anyway on the solar and battery storage in time to get rid of the moratoriums and put our laws in place. So we are going to hold a public hearing on June 5th to extend them yet again. And, maybe, do we want to pause? Because I think we should send all of our local law changes in one.
Yeah, I do too. I think we should do it in all one fell swoop, and I think that there is, at least, I definitely have some additional questions, but it does seem like there's some things that we can do that may give us some control,
That's great.
local control on these projects that are 20 megawatts or a lot larger. So, and it's, it was my understanding previously that there's really nothing you can do once the state takes over. It's a secretive process, and you really don't get any say until the state approves it, and then you're stuck with it. But it looks like there's some things you can do if you monitor the application process. You can, have some leverage at least, and get some benefits to the town out of it. So,
Examples?
like you can get free power for the town. That's a good thing, right? I mean,
Oh, for the town building or for houses?
well, it's like a megawatt, so it's a lot of power. I mean, I don't know. That's a question that I have, Fred.
Yeah,
I just don't have the answer to it right now.
Yeah, this was a snippet on a presentation they're going to give to the Association of Towns in a Zoom presentation next Tuesday. So it was just like a PowerPoint slide of what
They're gonna talk about.
what they're going to discuss at that meeting. So we don't have much more than the little caveat of the PowerPoint presentation, and it was really just bullet points of what you may or may want to adjust without like an audio of an explanation. So I hope to find out more next week. And usually after Association of Towns does those, they put them up for people to view after, for people who want the Association of Towns.
So, Kev, with this new information now, what do we want to do with it? Are you going to get it out to us?
I think we should, Kevin, I want to sit through the actual webinar Tuesday, I guess,
Right.
next week, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'll bring more information back to the board after that.
Yeah, then we'll, on June 5th, we can
But it
discuss
does
it in
look
the
like
work
there's some
session.
things that we can, if we implement some things in our local law, there may be, not that we'll have any real control, but at least we'll be able to ensure that the property is restored back to its pre-existing condition if it's decommissioned. It looks like there may be an opportunity for us to make a claim to get some,
To put liens against the property owner in
Yep.
case it does become, defunct or when it decommissions, to actually have a little more.
and it looks like there's an
Puts a
opportunity
little
to
more
get some.
onus on the property owner than
Yeah,
current.
it looks like there's an opportunity to get some power. I mean,
Right.
that's the way I read it at least. So it's worth at least pumping the brakes and looking at this a little closer before we send it off to the planning, zoning board and county planning.
Okay? Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
These solar farms you're talking about are 20 megawatt.
Correct.
Every solar farm we've had an application for and approved
Has been
has
5
not been
megawatts.
able to get even a 5 meg in some cases because National Grid didn't have the capacity. How does that dynamic change when the state steps in?
Typically, these larger projects will be required to do grid upgrades to accept the power that they're generating.
So they've got to pay for National Grid's upgrades
Upgrades,
if
correct.
they want to do it.
Correct.
Okay.
So there's,
What a record.
and these are big money projects. Not that the 5 megawatt projects are inexpensive, but these are.
Well, I get that. I was just trying to figure out if National Grid didn't have the capacity for all of those, 4 that we did.
Yeah.
Where's the capacity coming from? And you're telling me that.
Yeah, we'll have to pay to do upgrades to National Grids. No.
Al, where, and maybe John, Jack, where in our community can one of these big things go?
Well, that's the thing, they can span multiple parcels. So if a developer can get control of multiple parcels, like there's one in Skinny Atlas that I think is on like 4 or 5 separate parcels, but it's one large project. So it's all in what kind of land they can get control of. For example, a 5 megawatt project takes about 35 acres of land. So, 4 times that, you're looking at 140 acres of land. Well, we certainly have many parcels or many areas that have 140 vacant acres that are contiguous that a developer could buy up and develop. And only have to go to the state for approvals. Right, Barb?
Timber banks instead of housing. Less traffic.
Yeah, there are possibilities as the state, tries to move toward electric. But, a lot of those, they don't have to be contiguous. Is what, someone puts in for a 20 megawatt solar farm, obviously, it might be scattered across an area. It's not going to be necessarily one long piece, 400 acres. Could they put in as one project?
They would put it in as one project with one interconnect.
Okay, so they would have to be.
Yeah, it would be
connected
one
somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, it'd be one interconnect. So it's not. Like I said, I don't know as you can have parcels that cross road boundaries, but it would be one interconnect.
And this is a fearful thought. I'm looking at our map over there, and everything that's green could be turned into a solar farm. That is a pretty frightening thought.
Well, at 20 megawatts, we don't have any control over wind if they so desire, correct?
Yeah, we're not in a great area for wind here, but yes, we don't have it. This is solar in 20 megawatt projects that are solar or wind.
But you can knock down all those trees or that's in that green space and put up one of these things.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to there's tillable pieces of tillable acreages that are more than 140 acres that you could.
Well, at the county planning symposium, in some areas, the solar is high enough, they farm underneath it.
Yeah.
So we have regulations on height. In those places, the solar panels are 14, 15 feet in the air, so the tractors can cultivate underneath them.
If you let the developers take down all the trees, put in houses, you don't do what they do down in the south where they restrict that. They restrict how many trees can come down for putting in houses instead of, they level the land. Go look in Timber Banks in the new section, they leveled the land. There's piles and piles of trees they took down. They didn't even consider that in developing that.
Well, the planning board can dictate how that goes, but I will say, here in Radisson, a long-term problem of not taking the trees down is you look at all the ash trees in the old section that are now landlocked. You can't get into them without a crane. And I don't even know how expensive that is to have somebody cut a tree down in 4 or 5 foot sections that's dead when they're craning over your house. But, there's the drawback of, hey, this looks great in 1972, but in 2025, all those people with moss on their roofs would probably think differently of, hey, you can tear those down now and put something out there that's only going to be 20 feet tall so it doesn't take the roof out or ruin your roof. There's the drawback with the one way of, it looks beautiful, till you go through the old section now and everybody's got moss on their roofs and you got a bunch of dead ash trees clustered in the middle of everybody's, whose property is it? And then whose tree is it? It's yours when it falls.
The other thing that makes that plan difficult now is the current stormwater regulations and grading regulations. Especially with a site like Timberbanks, that's, well, you know, it's flat. I mean, that site's flat. So they're essentially creating elevation to make the stormwater systems work. You know, once you start doing mass lag grading like that, trees don't work. I mean, maybe there's a few that you could save, but most of them, if you're changing the grade of the land, it's not gonna work.
But what you're basically saying to me is that a number of the items that we put in the suggested law changes dealing with solar, if you guys are reviewing, doesn't matter if we put them in the code, it only affects solar farms under 20 megawatts.
Correct.
Over 20 megawatts, we have no control over siting, screening, setbacks, nothing.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, unless we put what they're suggesting in this presentation next week.
It only gives you limited.
Right. So
Very limited.
if you say, well, you know, we're gonna create a lien on the property owner of X amount of the value of the improvement, then the property owner's on the hook instead of like what we have now is a decommissioning bond. That's really all we have if they walk away from it at the end of 20 years. Well,
I'm not
this suggestion is you're gonna hold the property owner liable individually with a lien, you know.
Right.
How well does that work? You know, but is it one more avenue? Yes.
Well, I'm not talking about the end of the project, I'm talking about the beginning.
Okay.
We're not gonna have control much at all, if anything, over the beginning,
Yeah.
which creates what's there, puts it where they want it, whatever.
I will say, I don't think one of these 20 to 20 megawatt projects is going to be on leased land. They're gonna own it and they're gonna control it. They're not gonna.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't lease that property, I agree.
That's gonna be, that type of investment is going to be on an owned parcel. And, you know, well, having the opportunity to lien the land is certainly nice. If the company that owns the solar project goes under, what are you leaning? Because I guess you could lien on the value of the equipment that's installed, but that's never going to cover your costs. It's just not, you know, if there's.
And you've only got.
You look at the map, and we did this when we looked at this stuff, and we figured out where there was three-phase power, and there's hardly much out there where you.
Yeah, not on the western hinterlands.
So
no.
if they were to consider putting one of these projects in out there, the upgrade cost of the system would be horrendous. Because first you got to get three-phase power out there.
Yeah, but when you're talking the amount of state and federal dollars that are getting pumped towards these, because there's state and federal dollars not only for the solar development, but for the grid upgrades, it makes these projects possible.
So in other words, you're saying our tax dollars, government tax dollars, are actually going to subsidize them to do it, and not the developer. He's not going to pay much, is he?
No, he'll have a stake in the game, but you will get grants for the solar project and for the grid upgrades.
Okay.
And he could combine solar and wind together. I mean, you've got some spots out on the western end that's got some nice height. Believe me, the wind around here is terrible. Even the solar was never classified as anything of any value years ago when we did the initial studies at Grid. There was never any good quality solar in this area. And the fact that they were putting all these things in is, okay. Ithaca was always the good, and Albany. There wasn't really anything in central New York that was of any consistent value.
I was going to say, I read that the Finger Lakes area was a good solar spot.
Down there.
Yeah, on the ridge tops and those agricultural fields, and the same thing with wind, but not so much up here.
No, wind is definitely not.
one, the cloudy days in the winter, the amount of clouds that we get off the lake here is a big
Yes.
deterrent.
That's why the north was the great spot for the wind. When you first put the initial
Yeah, Tug Hill
3
Plateau.
turbines in
Yeah.
for demonstration purposes and to identify everything. We put those in up there, and then they took those down and put in bigger turbine systems.
I mean, that wind farm
On the-
up by Lowville is massive. I mean,
Yes,
that's
that's where we had the initial shot in,
thousands of acres.
90s, in the 90s.
Thank you. One side thing, because I have had people, solar, Will Nieves from New Solar, just to reiterate, they have already gone to the planning board phase. Our moratorium does not affect them unless they change their plan that they have presented to the planning board.
Unless they change the power generation plan. So like the project on 60 Road came in because they had to change the design of their stormwater management area. But they didn't change the power generation piece.
Okay.
So it did not essentially change their application to the planning board, so the planning board was forced to act on it, even though there's a moratorium in place.
Okay, because they were already, before the moratorium started, they had already got to the planning board phase.
Correct.
Had filed an application.
Correct.
And the one company keeps asking over and over again, you haven't addressed any grandfathering in any new laws, but they said as long as you don't change what you've presented, and you would talk to the planning board for the answer of this, it's not me, that you're fine with moving forward to go through the planning steps and, the code officer, once it's
I think he wants to change something is what it amounts.
I'm gonna guess that.
Is what it amounts to, Kevin, and probably because he originally came in with battery energy storage. He probably wants to add battery energy.
Which would then put him within the moratorium.
Correct. And that's why he's so anxious about getting the solar battery moratoriums lifted, is because he wants to add battery energy storage back in.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll table, Mr. Birch.
What did Jack say? He mentioned something about the owners or the people want to come and develop this. It's like a circus, they can pretty much do whatever they want, or?
Well, what they're talking about is for 20 megawatt and higher, the state is going to control everything.
Okay.
Whatever regulations
Take it out
they
of our
put in
hands.
would supersede anything we have on the books.
State laws.
And then Councilor Garassi made mention of that it's a scary thought that they could bridge across multiple properties in our town and cross the road or something like that. Well, I'm going to add something scarier to it that nobody in here has talked about tonight. I'm not sure if any of you saw any of the news before you came here today. The United States Department of Interior just concluded a study that finished today, and AP did the story on it. Who makes 99% of the solar panels that we use in our country?
China.
I would assume overseas.
Okay, it's China, and what they found today in dozens of solar fields is the Chinese installed kill switches on those. So if they have access to the power grid, they can shut off every single one of those panels. And so I can guarantee you that our government is not going to be doing business with the Chinese until that changes. There's going to be no big amounts of investment to do those large things until that gets taken. Either we get a different vendor or we find a way to go around that. But that was just released today. Do a Google search when you go home. In Department of Interior finds kill switches on solar panels, and you're going to have your story there. So, like Al was saying, hey, we could get power from it, but at any time they could hit a switch and we don't get anything from it.
Correct.
Just another thing to consider that is above and beyond us that we have no control over. That, who knows, it could probably be installed in that farm that's on Church Road right now.
Yes, yeah, I have no idea where they got the panels from. I don't think we could regulate where the panels
No.
actually originated from in our local laws without getting a lawsuit, so.
No, I just wanted you to be,
Yeah, no.
make sure you're aware of it, that, it's a great thing to have. Green energy is a great thing, as long as it's not an eyesore, but being able to hit a switch like that, that's a scary thought.
Okay, thank you. Wanted to bring a quick update. I was hoping the highway superintendent would be here. If he doesn't get here for the work session, I'll move that to the department head reports. But the appointed elected vote mailer, I have a sheet. Just to bring everybody up to speed. I think most people, most registered voters have received their mailers in the paper.
Right.
What's that?
Four of them.
Well, you must have 4
Well,
people registered, because we sent it to
maybe you
every
got-
registered voter.
Maybe she got one of mine, because I didn't get a single one. I'm assuming that the town and whoever runs the election for the town decide.
It's a bulk mailer, so
Yeah.
I would assume the rural delivery areas are probably gonna be a couple days behind.
Well, the thing is I know that my neighbors got them. I called my neighbors and talked to them, and I didn't get one. So I'm assuming that somebody in the town made a decision not to send it to my property? Okay.
No, it's a
You know, unless, I mean, the Board of Elections might have, because that's the list we had. Board of Elections gave the list to the printer. We did not have anything to do with it, other than sending the list along.
And realize that they're thin postcards, so they can get smashed together, and they
And
can
they're
also
both-
get banged up in the mail and everything else, so
So, but they're a bulk mailer, so it might
They
be.
come over time.
They don't always get to everybody the same day. But we sent it to every registered voter, and the cost came in about $6,000 for the postage and $2,200 for the actual mailer. So that was about $8,200. The public notices, we haven't got the bill. Those are the notices that are legally required to go in the newspaper. The poll workers managers for the day of the election, gonna run us about $2,900 for 6 people at each location. And then there's a poll machine technician for the day who is on site between both locations in case there's any issues. That's roughly $540. And then we're waiting on Board of Elections for the charges of the delivery and pickup machines and the actual ballots they print and the, tabulation parts. So an early estimate was about 3,000 per location. We haven't got final numbers from that yet, but we probably will have a better idea next week, or probably the next week. So with all those and putting a little fudge in there for the public notices of roughly $500, we're gonna be around 19 grand for the election. Just so everybody knows, and I believe it was 16,000 mailers went out?
18,000,
Or 18, okay,
a little over 18,000.
so.
17,999.
About 3 of them?
And some people got 4 at one house because there's 4 registered voters. I don't know if they still live there, but that's what's on Board of Elections information.
And maybe Dina, how does the voting work? You could go to either people or?
Yes, because you're using the electronic tabulators when you sign in.
Okay.
They update every 3 minutes.
Okay.
So unless you can somehow set a land speed record, you can't vote twice.
Good.
Okay? That is the wonders of technology
Great.
in this day and age. So that's why I feel 2 locations will be adequate, especially where the locations are across each side of town. They'll be open from noon to 9. If there is a line at 9 o'clock, they will stay open, and everybody in line, I think one of the poll workers comes out and stands at the line at 9, or they let it go. That's up to the town clerk. She runs the
And then
election.
people won't have to pay when they leave Beaver Lake either. They're
Correct. It's just like going there on primary or election day. And that being said, I'll throw this out there now, there are no primaries in the town of Lysander. So I know this is a confusing week because our mailers went out. You also got your poll location reminder from the Board of Elections. We are not an early voting location because of it being an off primary year. There's not a lot of contested races, so the county tries to put their money where they think voters will vote, and that's usually in the areas that have contests. So Lysander Town Hall will not be an early voting location. It will not be open on primary day. So those mailers are just reminders of when those dates are this year. You can show up here on primary day, and the court clerks will be here. The chairs will be out. So, or early voting. In the locations, usually you can find that on. The other caveat with the election is because we're using the Board of Elections list, you have to be registered voter by May 30th, 10 days before the election. So if you didn't get a mailer or you want to check, you need to call the Board of Elections and get registered. If there are already people that moved into the town, register by May 30th with Board of Elections. If you go to ongov.net, go to the Board of Elections, it'll give you information on how to register to vote. As long as you're in by May 30th, that information will be in the system because they have a drop dead timeline with a special election and getting the machines ready of being able to have them ready for the people to use them on June 9th. And as I said, there was a couple of people we're putting on for the work session for highway, so highway superintendent comes in, department head reports. If not, we'll wait for anything on that regard until department heads. Town board meetings. I didn't save the schedule of board meetings, but this is our last meeting for May. We have a meeting on June 5th. June 19th is Juneteenth. So it's a federal holiday, so there is no meeting. What I was wondering, because then we run into, the next meeting would be July 3rd, which we had decided we weren't going to have a meeting, because the 4th is the next day. We wouldn't then be meeting until July 17th. Is the board interested in holding a special meeting in June? And this is why I wanted to ask, because depending on the outcome of the vote, we might have some decisions to make, and I don't know if we want to wait on items. So now we get into when is this room open and available? Mondays would probably be the best chance because, or we could, I know that our town clerk probably will not be here. I didn't know how busy the week of the 23rd to the 26th is for board members.
I don't think there's nothing in here on Thursday night, the 26th, too. I wouldn't think.
Right, that's what I was saying. Any time it would be, it would be a special meeting regardless. And, what I was thinking of right now, depending on the outcome of the election, because we're going to meet before the election.
Why don't you just make it like Monday the 16th?
Monday the 16th. That doesn't fall into, zoning would meet the second Monday of the month, right?
Zoning's the
Or
9th.
No, zoning can't be the 9th.
The only thing I would,
Oh, right.
Because we're having the vote.
the only reason I would suggest the 26th is because that spreads out so you don't have more than a month between meetings. Because your
Right.
July meeting.
Well, we're meeting June 5th. I see what you're saying for July. We're not going to meet until July.
Yeah, then you wouldn't have more than
I'm good on the 26th.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good?
I can-
Okay.
I can do that too.
So we'll put into the schedule and put online that we will be meeting on Thursday, June 26th.
And will there be a work session?
Yes.
Well, like same, just like a normal
Yeah,
meeting?
yep,
Okay.
normal meeting. Mr. Birch?
It was a question about the previous item on the work session, the special election.
Yeah.
Since the town is holding a special election and there's no candidates, it would be governed by Onondaga County Board of Elections and their rules. Are there any special rules that the town of Lysander is having for that special election? Rules regarding signage, anything of that nature?
It would be just like any other general election. I'm sure they'll put the distance.
It wouldn't be unless you guys made it that way. Onondaga County Board of Elections has no control over the special election. They don't create any of the rules for it. That's done by the town.
Well, I think we can make rules up until 10 days before the election.
Yeah.
So do we want to make sure and codify that tonight?
We could codify tonight an authorization of the Board of Trustees to apply the rules of the Onondaga County Board of Election, the special election in June.
Okay, thank you for that notification. And there's another item, just so everybody knows on the agenda. Is the LWRP on there? What? I missed it. Item D, you put it in the middle, okay? Just wanted to make sure. And that's all I have for the work session. If everybody wants to take a brief recess, we'll start the meeting at 6:30.